David, it's great to see you. Look,
Great to be here.
I want to talk to you about AI and responsible AI, but I want to start off saying, do you have a better version of Alexa than I do?
Well, probably. No, but stay tuned, because I think in the months and years to come, you'll see Alexa take advantage of some of this new technology and become an even better and more useful assistant.
So AI is sweeping the political world, it's sweeping the business world, it's sweeping the area of opportunity, it's sweeping the area of concern. You're trying to sort of be a stakeholder in the development of ethical guardrails or ethical AI. What does that mean to you in real terms?
Well, I should start out by saying, I think everybody...
I should say ethical, responsible. Excuse me, responsible.
Yeah, I should start out by saying everybody at Amazon is incredibly excited by the potential of using this new set of technologies, really new species of machine learning,
right, to
transform and improve almost every type of customer experience that we offer. And so there's a ton of people thinking hard about how to do that. We have over 100,000 enterprise customers already who are using this technology and experimenting on their own. And I think as we develop this technology, we want to do so in a responsible way. We want to build in guardrails where we can and where we come up with some. And we want to work productively with government partners to come up with regulation of AI in particularly sensitive use cases or risk-based use cases where we all agree we can use more regulatory guardrails as well. So we support that type of regulation in addition to working on building guardrails into the technology.
Tell us what you mean by that. Look, these shoes are wearing out. They're size 15. They're brown. They're not made by slave labor, I think. When you think about responsible AI, the consumer experience, what they might get, new shoes, but there's this whole other dimension out there of competition. Give us some examples, sort of like,
sure,
like this.
So
my shoes.
Well, I don't know about your shoes, and I'm not going to touch your shoes. But Amazon is working with this technology at a couple of different levels. First of all, we have what we call this sort of base level, where we offer the fundamental building blocks for foundation models: memory, chips, compute capacity. And we offer that to companies like Anthropic and like other smaller AI startups so that they can train their foundation models in new ways using our platform. When we do that for our own foundation models, we think it's fair to ask companies to disclose, to be transparent about how they're building their models. And so
right,
we have a feature called service cards, which we attach to every product, and we publish those, and the service cards say how they're trained, what their intended uses are, what the limitations may be, and contain a great deal of technical information that gives users of those models a guide, a sense of what they're using. So that's an example of a real-world example
right,
of a guardrail that we can build in.
Is democratizing AI important to you, and how are you approaching that?
Yeah, absolutely. When you get past that base layer, we have a middle layer, which is in a service called Amazon Bedrock. Bedrock is an enterprise-level service that enterprise customers can come and use multiple models. They can choose and test and refine the multiple models, including our own, including Anthropic's, including Mistral, including Meta's, and they can decide for themselves what works and what doesn't. And so in that layer, we are able to amplify the use of this technology across many different businesses. And I think actually the most interesting innovations may come from those customers' uses of that data, of those models. Because when they come to Amazon and they use Bedrock, they're in a secure environment, they're in a safe environment, but they can experiment and come up with experiences for their own customers and for their employees that we would never have thought of. And I think that's where we'll start to see the really interesting transformative uses.
On a customer basis, are you doing something different than others in this space are when it comes to AI? And I think AI for many people is still a big question mark that they may not understand. But how are different incumbent players like yourself approaching this, and what differentiates what you're doing?
I think the differentiator for Amazon is that we're at all these levels, right? There's the training level, there's this middle level which we make available to other enterprises, and then at the top level where we're developing our own applications, that consumers can use. A good example of that is the Titan image generator, where somebody who wants to come up with an advertisement featuring their product can come up with an image. That has guardrails built in as well. For instance, it contains every image that's generated has an invisible watermark, so that it's labeled as being generated by this technology. AI, of course, is just these generative language models and media models are really just a flavor of machine learning. And Amazon's been working with machine learning for many years.
So you're in this space, you're deploying this now. You're also in Washington, D.C. This town loves to regulate. We're going to regulate you. I mean, what is from your perspective, what would a good framework for regulation look like?
Well, I think you have to understand that machine learning and AI looks different in different contexts. It looks very different for Rufus, which is Amazon's newly released shopping assistant, which can help you get some new shoes. It looks different there than it does in a medical context where we're using this type of technology to diagnose illness, to pick prescription drugs, and to do medical research. Then that's a situation where it's easy to come up with use cases, outcomes that we want to guard against to make sure it's being used safely. And so the types of regulation that you might consider in the medical space are very different than in the shopping space. And so I think it's educating folks about why it looks different in different contexts, and then surveying the regulatory landscape to see if the outcomes that we're afraid of are already covered by existing laws, because in many cases they are. And then if we see gaps, to focus our regulatory energy on those gaps and making sure that everybody's comfortable that in these new places where there aren't already laws, that we're regulating appropriately.
Right. Some of you may know Michelle Flournoy, who was our Undersecretary of Policy at the Pentagon, very significant defense intellectual, and she's just written a piece in Foreign Affairs arguing, AI is already out there. It's also working on national security areas, and we need to be careful of creating a regulatory framework that undermines innovation, that gets in the way. I'm interested in the business side of that, and whether or not you think there are risks with as we're seeing, executive orders come from the president, from the White House, or the EU act on AI. Are you worried that there could be something that might disadvantage American business in this space? It's one thing to talk about responsible AI, but what could we do to harm the practical applications and the benefits from AI?
Well, because it looks different in different contexts, the big danger is that we regulate it as if one size fits all, and that we create constraints, burdens, costs associated with developing and using that technology that basically inhibits the speed or the direction of that it might otherwise go to. I think there's tremendous excitement and optimism about the potential for using this in transformative ways. I'm convinced that we're going to cure cancer with this type of technology, machine learning and AI. But the worst thing would be to enact a regulation that would slow those innovations down or inhibit research into new directions.
If you were to line up a lot of regulators and members of Congress and senators, we have a lot of them through here, and you say this needs to be at least one of your North Stars. There's usually only one North Star, but sometimes people see the sky differently. But when you're kind of looking at a North Star to help them guide their decisions, what would be the most important thing you'd tell them?
Well, first of all, that they need to communicate, they need to learn from business and from government about what this technology is and how people want to use it before they come to conclusions about how to regulate. And second of all, they need to stay connected with other governments, because we can't, it's a bad world if every single government has a different set of standards for regulating AI. And so I think we're seeing some consensus build between the president's voluntary commitments, the UK summit that we attended last year, the G7 process that was kicked off in Hiroshima, toward this kind of use-based sectoral approach to regulation. And Amazon supports that wholeheartedly and is available to offer any assistance we can, both in sharing the details of how the technology is being used and in thinking through what the right regulations would be.
You know, we just honestly would tell folks we just had a really interesting lunch and lots of different perspectives on AI. I have no idea. It's such an embryonic debate still in many ways, and we're actually talking about it almost as if it's a done deal. But I am interested in what you think will help American consumers fall in love with AI, because there is a trust factor out there.
Yeah, I think the things that will help people understand AI and fall in love with it are the things that make their lives easier, that make their lives safer or healthier, and that give them more time to be with their families and loved ones, that make their jobs better and safer. In our fulfillment network, we're using AI in robotics to up-level the jobs that we have. It's not.
You're going to hear later from the Amazon robot guy. His name is Ty. He's really, really fun.
We're not going to get rid of jobs. We're not going to replace jobs, but we're going to make them better and safer. And so I think when people understand that that's the potential, I think people will understand that it can be used as a force of good. And so long as it's being used responsibly and we're keeping an eye out for the outcomes that might concern us and focusing on those gaps, you know, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism.
Are you upfront with legislators and sharing when you have insights in this about how it could go off the rails, what you think where there needs to be regulation as you get deeper and deeper into this? Are you able to share your concerns that you're seeing out there about you know, because there is a downside, right? And we all know that there's a worry that AI could power up, get autonomous, and begin, you know, basically making decisions that have real negative impacts on lives.
We absolutely have an open dialogue with all the government partners and regulators that we work with. We want to keep that an ongoing exchange because we're learning more about this every day. People are coming up with new ideas every day. But I also think this is why sort of AI is actually a pretty unfortunate nomenclature, because we're not really talking about the AI that's going to sort of become autonomous and take over the world right now. At least not with the foundation models that folks are focusing on so intently. This is a different thing. It's a tool. It's a set of tools that are going to make our lives easier, that are going to improve productivity, and potentially do some pretty transformative things with the way we all experience our lives.
Before I ask you the last question, you know, I do want to thank you and Amazon for partnering with us. I mean, it takes what you have done for us to help bring these conversations to us. So thank you so much for that. But you know, just you know, as we've got 46 seconds. If you want our audience to know one thing about the future of AI, their lives, and maybe what you do for them at Amazon, what would that be?
It would be that there's a lot to be optimistic about. We should be excited about this technology. Amazon's working hard to roll this out, to democratize it, to let enterprises use it and experiment with it. And we're doing so in a responsible way, in a way that, and we support regulation in thoughtful ways to help accelerate that process.
Which do you like better, DC or Seattle, since you're living across the river?
You can't make me choose. You know, I like being here during the week, and I like going to the mountains on the weekend. So.
David Sapolsky, Senior Vice President, Global Public Policy, and the General Counsel at Amazon. Thank you so much
for
sharing your insights.